The cathedral doors slammed shut behind Caroline Bennett as Eleanor Whitmore's voice cut through the sacred silence like a blade. "Get out! Now!" Every head turned. Every whisper stopped. Caroline's hands froze on her wheelchair. The dress she'd spent 3 weeks sewing suddenly felt like rags against her skin. Her 5-year-old daughter Grace clutched her arm, tears already forming. "Mommy, why is she yelling?" But here's what nobody knew. The man watching from the third pew was about to do something that would change everything. What happened next didn't just save Caroline from humiliation, it exposed a truth that would shake this entire church to its foundation. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far Caroline's story travels, and hit subscribe because what comes next will restore your faith in humanity. Caroline's wheelchair caught on the cathedral's entrance rug for the third time that morning. She'd arrived early, deliberately 30 minutes before the ceremony, hoping to slip in quietly, find her spot in the back, where they always put people like her, and watch her childhood friend Maggie become Mrs. Richard Whitmore III, without causing any fuss. "Careful, Mommy," Grace whispered, her small hand resting on Caroline's shoulder. The little girl wore a yellow dress Caroline had made from leftover fabric, the same fabric from Caroline's own dress, pale blue cotton with tiny white flowers, simple but clean pressed until the creases were sharp as prayers. "I'm okay, sweetie." Caroline adjusted her grip and pushed forward wheels, finally finding purchase on the marble floor. The cathedral stretched before them, all vaulted ceilings and stained glass catching the morning light. She'd been here once before, years ago, back when her legs still worked. Back when Maggie used to call her every Sunday, back before the accident that took her husband and left her with a pair of legs that would never walk again, and a daughter who barely remembered her father. "It's so pretty!" Grace breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the flowers, white roses and lilies everywhere, probably cost more than Caroline's rent for 6 months. "It is, baby. Maggie always wanted a wedding like this." They'd been friends since 3rd grade. Maggie Chen with her perfect grades and her perfectly pressed skirts, and Caroline the girl who wore hand-me-downs, but could make anyone laugh. They'd stayed close through high school, through Caroline's quick wedding to Tom Bennett when she got pregnant at 19, through everything. Until the accident 3 years ago. After that, Maggie's calls became texts. Then the texts became likes on Facebook. Then nothing but a wedding invitation that arrived 6 weeks ago with Caroline's name in elegant calligraphy, like an afterthought, like obligation wrapped in expensive paper. But Caroline came anyway, because that's what friends did. Because some part of her still believed Maggie remembered the girl who used to share her lunch, who helped her cheat on Mr. Peterson's geometry tests, who held her hair back when she got drunk for the first time on cheap wine behind the grocery store. "This way." Caroline steered toward the back left corner, where she could see the accessible seating sign, a little blue wheelchair symbol that might as well have said, "Damaged goods go here." That's when she heard the footsteps. Sharp, deliberate, heels clicking on marble like gunshots. "Excuse me." Caroline looked up. The woman approaching wore cream, not white cream, because only the bride wore white, a designer suit that probably cost more than Caroline's car, what was left of it. Her hair was silver blonde, styled into submission, and her face held the kind of beauty that came from expensive maintenance and careful preservation. But her eyes were cold, assessing, taking in Caroline's wheelchair, her simple dress, her daughter's handmade clothes, and finding everything wanting. "Can I help you?" Caroline kept her voice level, pleasant. She'd learned that tone, the one that said, "I'm not a threat, I'm not asking for anything, please just let me exist." "I'm Eleanor Whitmore." The woman didn't extend her hand. "Richard's mother." "Oh." Caroline tried to smile. "Congratulations, Maggie's wonderful. You're getting a great... What are you doing here?" The question landed like a slap. Grace's hand tightened on Caroline's shoulder. I'm here for the wedding. Maggie invited me. We're old friends." Eleanor's mouth thinned into a line. "I don't think you understand. This is a private ceremony. Family and close friends only." "I am a close friend. Maggie and I have known each other since... Let me be clearer." Eleanor stepped closer, lowering her voice, but not enough. Not nearly enough. People were starting to turn, starting to watch, starting to witness. This wedding has been planned for 18 months. Every detail has been curated. Every guest has been carefully selected. We have photographers coming, videographers, people from the society pages. This is not. She paused, her eyes dragging over Caroline's wheelchair again, over Grace's worn shoes, over everything Caroline couldn't hide. This is not appropriate. Heat flooded Caroline's face. I have an invitation. I don't care what you have. Eleanor's voice rose slightly, just enough to carry. You cannot be here. You're not. Look at yourself. Look at what you're wearing. This is a Whitmore wedding, not some charity event. The words hit like physical blows. Caroline felt Grace trembling beside her, heard her daughter's quick, frightened breathing. Please, Caroline whispered, hating herself for begging but doing it anyway. I just want to watch. I'll stay in the back. Nobody will even know I'm here. Everyone will know you're here. That's the problem. Eleanor gestured toward the entrance. I need you to leave. Now. Before Richard sees you, before the ceremony starts, before you ruin what should be the most beautiful day of my son's life. Mommy. Grace's voice was small, scared. Why is she being mean? Eleanor's eyes snapped to Grace with something like disgust. Take your daughter and go, if you have any decency at all. I have plenty of decency. Caroline's voice shook, but she forced it steady. More than you, apparently. A flush crept up Eleanor's neck. How dare you? I dare because I'm a human being. Because I was invited. Because your son is marrying my friend, and I have every right to be here. You have no rights here. Eleanor's voice dropped to something dangerous. You think you can just roll in here in that thing? She flicked her fingers toward the wheelchair like it was contaminated. Wearing a dress that looks like you made it in a basement with a child who clearly doesn't even have proper shoes and expect to sit among our guests. Among senators and business owners and people who matter. The cathedral had gone completely silent. Every person in every pew was watching now. Caroline could feel their stares, could imagine what they saw, the poor crippled woman causing a scene, making things awkward, not knowing her place. Please. Caroline hated how her voice cracked. I'm not trying to cause trouble. Maggie's my friend. I need to be here for her. Maggie doesn't need you. Eleanor leaned down, her perfume expensive and suffocating. She hasn't needed you for years. The only reason you got an invitation was because she felt sorry for you. Everyone feels sorry for you. But pity doesn't buy you a seat at this wedding. Grace started crying soft, hiccuping sobs that broke something in Caroline's chest. Shh, baby, it's okay. Caroline pulled her daughter close, feeling tears burning in her own eyes, but refusing to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people. We're going to go. Good. Eleanor straightened, smoothing her suit. Finally, some sense. Caroline started to turn. Her wheelchair started to leave, started to accept the humiliation, because that's what you did when you were broken, when you didn't matter, when you'd learned that fighting back only made things worse. She'd get Grace to the car, drive home, cry in the bathroom, where her daughter wouldn't hear, and add this to the growing list of reasons why she should just stop trying to be part of a world that didn't want her. But as she turned, her wheel caught on that damn rug again. The chair jerked. Grace stumbled, and Caroline's purse fell, spilling its contents across the marble floor. Grace's inhaler, a pack of tissues, the program from her husband's funeral that she still carried for reasons she couldn't explain, loose change receipts, all the small, shameful evidence of a small life tumbling across expensive marble. Oh, for God's sake! Eleanor's voice dripped with contempt. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can't even leave with dignity. Caroline bent down as much as she could from her chair, reaching for Grace's inhaler, for the funeral program, for any piece of pride she could salvage. Grace knelt beside her, gathering change with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. It's okay, Mommy. I'll get it. I'll get everything. And that's when Caroline heard it. Footsteps. Different from Eleanor's. Heavier. Purposeful. Coming closer. That's enough. The voice was male, quiet, but carrying authority that didn't need volume. Caroline looked up from the floor, from her scattered belongings, from her scattered dignity. A man stood 3 feet away. Tall, maybe early 40s, wearing a dark suit that looked comfortable rather than expensive. His hair was brown, slightly too long, and his face had the kind of lines that came from actual smiling, from real weather, from working with his hands. His eyes were steady calm, but there was steel underneath. "Excuse me." Eleanor turned, and Caroline could see the woman's face shift, trying to place him, trying to figure out if he was important enough to matter. "I said that's enough." The man looked at Eleanor like she was a problem he'd dealt with before, the kind you handled calmly but firmly. "You need to stop talking to her that way. I don't know who you think you are." "Daniel Thornton. I'm a guest, one of Richard's business associates." He didn't move, didn't raise his voice, just stood there like a wall. "And I'm telling you respectfully that what you're doing is wrong." Eleanor's face flushed darker. "You don't understand the situation." "I understand perfectly." Daniel's eyes didn't leave Eleanor's face. "I understand that you're standing in a church, a place supposedly built on compassion and welcome, and you're telling a woman in a wheelchair that she doesn't belong. I understand that you're doing it in front of her young daughter. I understand that you're judging someone based on their clothes and their disability instead of their character, and I understand that it stops now. How dare you interfere in... How dare you treat someone like this?" Daniel's voice stayed level, but something shifted in his tone. Something harder. "Do you know who she is? Have you asked? Or did you just see the wheelchair and decide she wasn't worth your time?" Eleanor sputtered. "That's not, I'm protecting my son's wedding." "From what?" "From kindness, from decency." Daniel finally looked away from Eleanor, looked down at Caroline still on the floor, gathering her things, and his expression softened. "Ma'am, let me help you." He knelt, actually knelt on the marble in his good suit, and started picking up Caroline's belongings. Grace watched him with wide eyes, tears still wet on her cheeks. "You don't have to," Caroline whispered. "I know." Daniel handed her the funeral program carefully, like he understood what it meant. "But I want to." Eleanor made a strangled sound. "This is completely inappropriate. I'm going to have security." "Security." Daniel stood, helping Caroline gather the last items into her purse. "You're going to call security on a guest, on a woman who was invited. Do it, please. I'd love to explain to everyone here, including your son, exactly why you felt the need to have someone removed from a church." The threat hung in the air. Caroline could see Eleanor calculating, weighing her options, realizing that this man wasn't backing down, wasn't going to be intimidated or dismissed. "This isn't over," Eleanor hissed. "Yes," Daniel said quietly. "It is." Eleanor stood there another moment, her face mottled with rage and embarrassment, then spun on her expensive heels and stalked toward the front of the church, her shoulders rigid with fury. The cathedral slowly came back to life. Whispers started. Heads turned away. People pretended they'd seen nothing, heard nothing, that the ugliness hadn't happened right in front of them. Daniel turned back to Caroline. "Are you okay?" Caroline couldn't speak, couldn't process what had just happened. This stranger had stood up for her, had challenged Eleanor Whitmore in front of everyone, had knelt on the floor to help her pick up her scattered life. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Why would you do that?" Daniel's smile was sad. "Because someone should have." Grace tugged on his sleeve. "Thank you for helping my mommy." "You're welcome, sweetheart." Daniel looked at Caroline again, something gentle in his expression. "You don't have to leave. You're invited. You have every right to be here." Caroline shook her head. "I can't stay now. After that, everyone will be watching, judging." "Let them watch." Daniel's voice was firm. "Don't let her win. Don't let her make you feel like you're less than anyone else here." "But I am." The words escaped before Caroline could stop them. "Look at me. Look at this chair. Look at my daughter's shoes. Eleanor was right about everything except the part where I matter." No. Daniel crouched down so he was eye level with her, his voice intense. She wasn't right about anything. Not one thing. Your dress is beautiful. Your daughter is beautiful. And you are not less than anyone in this building. Not one person. Caroline felt tears spilling over, finally couldn't stop them anymore. You don't understand. I understand more than you think. Daniel pulled a card from his pocket, pressed it into her hand. Listen, I have to get back to my daughter. She's sitting with my sister, but I want you to call me. Today, tomorrow, whenever. Please. Caroline looked at the card through blurred vision. Daniel Thornton, Thornton Construction, a local number. Why would I call you? Because I think you might need a friend. Daniel stood. And because I have a bookkeeping position that just opened up at my company, and something tells me you'd be good at it. Before Caroline could respond, before she could process any of this, Daniel walked back toward the pews, back to wherever his daughter was waiting. Back to his life that had briefly intersected with hers in the most unexpected way. Grace pulled on Caroline's sleeve. Mommy, can we stay now? The nice man said we could. Caroline looked toward the front of the church. She could see Eleanor standing near the altar. Her back rigid, probably already telling Richard about the scene about the awkward woman who'd dared to show up. And somewhere in the bride's room, Maggie was getting ready. Maggie who had sent an invitation but hadn't called in 2 years. Maggie who Caroline once thought would always be there. No baby. Caroline wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders. We're going home. But the nice man was kind, very kind. But this isn't our place anymore. Caroline turned her wheelchair toward the door, pushed through. Heard the heavy cathedral doors close behind them with a soft, final thud. Outside, the spring air was warm, the sun bright, the world continuing like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just been told she didn't matter by someone wearing cream-colored silk. Grace climbed into the car quietly, strapping herself in without being asked. Caroline folded her wheelchair, she'd gotten good at it, could do it in under 30 seconds now, and loaded it into the trunk. Her hands were shaking. Everything was shaking. She sat in the driver's seat, modified controls under her hands, the card Daniel had given her sitting on the passenger seat like a question she didn't know how to answer. A job. He'd offered her a job. A stranger who'd watched her get humiliated and somehow decided she deserved kindness instead of pity. It didn't make sense. People didn't do that. People saw the chair and saw burden, saw limitation, saw all the reasons to look away. But he'd knelt on a marble floor and picked up her things. He'd stood between her and Eleanor like a shield. He'd looked at her like she mattered. Caroline picked up the card, traced the raised letters with her thumb. Maybe he was serious. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was just something people said when they felt sorry for you, words that sounded good in the moment, but meant nothing in the light of regular life. She started the car. Mommy! Grace's voice was small from the back seat. Are you sad? A little bit, baby. Me too. A pause. But the nice man made it better. A little bit. Caroline looked at her daughter in the rearview mirror, at Grace's serious face, at the yellow dress that matched her own, at the small, brave person she was raising despite everything. Yeah, Caroline said softly. He did. A little bit. She pulled out of this parking lot, leaving St. Matthew's Cathedral behind, leaving Maggie's wedding, leaving the life she'd once thought she'd have. But in her pocket, pressed against her heart, was a business card from a stranger who'd seen her when everyone else had looked away. And for the first time in 3 years, Caroline thought maybe, just maybe, that was enough to call hope. The apartment was quiet when they got home, the kind of quiet that made everything louder. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the cheap wall clock. Grace's soft breathing as she changed out of her yellow dress and back into her everyday clothes. Caroline sat at the kitchen table, Daniel's business card still in her hand, turning it over and over like it might reveal something she'd missed. She should throw it away. That's what made sense. Kind gestures from strangers didn't turn into real things. They were moments brief and shining, and ultimately meaningless, like catching a firefly only to watch it fly away the second you opened your hands. "Mommy, I'm hungry." Caroline looked up. Grace stood in the doorway wearing her faded Minnie Mouse shirt and leggings with a hole in the knee. Real life. This was real life. "Grilled cheese. Can we have tomato soup too?" "Yeah, baby. We can have tomato soup too." Caroline rolled to the stove, pulled out the ingredients, the motion's automatic. Butter in the pan, bread, cheese. She'd gotten good at cooking from the chair, had learned which utensils worked, which pans were the right height, how to compensate for everything she couldn't reach. Grace sat at the table swinging her legs, humming something that might have been a song from school. "The nice man had kind eyes," Grace said suddenly. Caroline's hand stilled on the spatula. "Yeah, he did." "Do you think he meant it about the job?" "I don't know, sweetie. Sometimes grown-ups say things to be nice." "But he looked like he meant it." Grace's voice was certain in the way only children could be certain about things. "Not like when Aunt Jennifer says we should visit, but then she's always too busy." Caroline flipped the sandwich, watched the bread turn golden. Her sister Jennifer, who'd helped for 3 months after the accident, then slowly faded away, calls getting shorter, excuses getting longer, until now they talked maybe twice a year on birthdays and Christmas. Not because Jennifer was cruel. Just because disability made people uncomfortable, made them remember how fragile everything was, how quickly life could break you. "Maybe he did mean it," Caroline said softly. "Then you should call him." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because nothing was ever that simple. Because jobs required references, and Caroline hadn't worked in 3 years. Because she'd need to arrange transportation and childcare, and explain the wheelchair and the medications, and all the ways her body didn't work right anymore. Because hope was dangerous and disappointment was exhausting, and she was so tired of being disappointed. Because, Caroline said, which wasn't an answer at all. They ate lunch in silence, tomato soup and grilled cheese. Grace's favorite. Afterward, Caroline cleaned up while Grace went to her room to play. The card sat on the table accusing. Caroline picked up her phone 3 times and put it down 3 times. What would she even say? "Thank you for defending me. I'm desperate enough to take pity employment. Can you save me because I've forgotten how to save myself?" The phone rang. Caroline jumped, nearly dropped it, saw Maggie's name on the screen. Her finger hovered over the decline button. Then, before she could overthink it, she answered. "Hello, Caroline." Maggie's voice was tight, strange. "I heard what happened. Did Eleanor tell you? Let me guess, the poor crippled girl made a scene and ruined your perfect day before it even started." Silence. Then quietly, "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Caroline's voice shook. "You invited me, Maggie. You sent me a card with my name in fancy writing. And when your future mother-in-law kicked me out of the church, where were you? I was getting ready. I didn't know. You knew. Eleanor came straight from me to you, didn't she? Complained about the inappropriate guest, and you did nothing." More silence. Caroline could hear music in the background, voices, the sounds of a celebration happening. The wedding must be over. Maggie was married now. "I'm sorry," Maggie said finally. "Are you really? Or are you just calling because someone told you it looked bad that you didn't defend me?" "That's not Caroline. You don't understand the position I'm in. The Whitmores are important people. Eleanor has connections to everyone in this city. If I'd made a scene, if I'd gone against her, I was your friend." Caroline's voice broke. "For 15 years I was your friend, and you couldn't even stand up for me for 5 minutes. It's different now. Because I'm in a wheelchair. Because you're—" Maggie stopped, and in that pause, Caroline heard everything she needed to know. Because our lives went different directions. You have to understand, Richard's family has expectations. There are standards. I can't just— Standards? Caroline laughed hollow. Standards that don't include people in wheelchairs. Standards that don't include anyone who reminds you that life can break people. Is that what you're marrying into, Maggie? A family where kindness has a dress code. You're being unfair. I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm being completely honest with you. Caroline gripped the phone tighter. Do you remember when we were 16 and your mom kicked you out for dating that guy she didn't approve of, who let you sleep on her couch for a week? That was different. How was that different? Because we were kids, because everything was simpler then. No, Caroline's voice went quiet. Because you had legs that worked, and I was useful to you. Now I'm just an embarrassment. Caroline, I hope you're happy, Maggie. I really do. I hope Richard is everything you want, and Eleanor becomes the mother-in-law of your dreams. I hope your perfect life in your perfect house with your perfect friends is everything you imagined. Caroline took a breath. But don't call me again. Don't send Christmas cards or birth announcements or any of those things people do when they want to feel like they're still good people without actually being good people. Please don't do this. Goodbye, Maggie. Caroline ended the call, set the phone down, and stared at her hands. They were shaking. Everything was shaking. 15 years of friendship gone. Just gone. Like it had never mattered at all. Mommy? Grace appeared in the doorway, her eyes worried. Are you okay? Yeah, baby. I'm okay. You're crying. Caroline touched her face, surprised to find it wet. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they're sad. About the wedding. About a lot of things. Caroline held out her arms, and Grace climbed into her lap like she used to when she was smaller, before she started understanding that maybe she was too big for that. But we're going to be okay. Because of the nice man. Caroline looked at the business card still sitting on the table. Daniel Thornton, a stranger who'd knelt on marble floors. A stranger who'd offered kindness without asking for anything back. Maybe, she said quietly. Grace settled against her chest, warm and solid and real. I think you should call him. I think he's nice. You think everyone's nice. Not the mean lady. She wasn't nice. No. Caroline agreed. She definitely wasn't nice. They sat like that for a long time. Caroline's arms around her daughter's breathing slow and steady, the afternoon light slanting through the kitchen window. Finally, Grace stirred. Mommy, can I watch my show? Sure, baby. Grace climbed down, padded to the living room, turned on the television, to some cartoon with too bright colors and too loud music. Caroline wheeled to the table, picked up her phone, picked up Daniel's card. Her thumb traced the numbers. She could call. What was the worst that could happen? He'd say the offer wasn't real. She'd feel stupid for 5 minutes and then go back to her regular life. Except her regular life was applying to minimum wage jobs that never called back stretching groceries to make it through the month, watching Grace wear shoes 2 sizes too small because new ones weren't in the budget. Her regular life was fine, sustainable, survivable. But it wasn't good. It hadn't been good in a long time. Before she could change her mind, Caroline dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maybe he wouldn't answer. Maybe this was the universe telling her to stop hoping for things that didn't exist. Hello? Caroline's breath caught. Mr. Thornton, this is Caroline Bennett, from the church this morning. Caroline. His voice warmed immediately. I'm glad you called. I was hoping you would. You were... Of course. Are you okay? After everything. I'm fine. We're fine. Caroline twisted the phone cord around her finger, an old habit from childhood. I wanted to thank you for what you did. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Daniel's voice was firm. Nobody should be treated that way, especially not in a church. Still, it was kind. You were kind. A pause. Then, are you calling about the job? Caroline's heart hammered. Is it real? The offer? Or was it just something you said because it's real? No hesitation. Completely real. My bookkeeper retired last month and I've been drowning in paperwork ever since. I'm a builder, not an accountant. I need someone who actually knows what they're doing. I haven't worked in 3 years. Do you know how to use QuickBooks? Yes. I used to do bookkeeping for my husband's business before she stopped, before the accident, before everything changed. But Mr. Thornton, Daniel, please. Daniel, you don't know anything about me. You don't know if I'm qualified or reliable or... I know you showed up to support a friend even though it was hard. I know you handle yourself with dignity, even when people are cruel. I know you're raising a daughter by yourself, and you sewed your own dress because you couldn't afford to buy one. His voice softened. I know you're the kind of person who keeps a funeral program in her purse 3 years later because she's not ready to let go. That tells me everything I need to know. Caroline's eyes burned. Those aren't job qualifications. They are to me. A pause. Look, I'm not offering charity. I need a bookkeeper. You need a job. It's remote work mostly. You'd come to the office maybe once a week for meetings, the rest you can do from home. Flexible hours. Decent pay. Health insurance after 90 days. Health insurance. Caroline closed her eyes. Grace's inhaler cost $60 a month. Her medications cost more. They were one emergency away from complete disaster. Why me? She whispered. You could hire anyone. Because I believe in second chances. Because my wife died 4 years ago, and I know what it's like when the world decides you're broken. Because my daughter Lily is 7, and she asked me at lunch why that mean lady was yelling at you, and I want her to grow up in a world where people help each other instead of tearing each other down. Daniel's voice was steady, honest. And because when I watched you sitting on that floor picking up your things trying not to cry in front of your daughter, you reminded me of myself. And I thought maybe I could make your life a little easier the way I wish someone had made mine easier when I needed it most. Caroline couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. This stranger was offering her everything she needed and asking for nothing impossible in return. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come to the office Monday morning, 9 o'clock. We'll go over everything, talk details, see if it's a good fit. He gave her an address. And Caroline, bring Grace if you need to. My office has toys in the corner for when Lily visits. Kids are always welcome. Daniel. Monday, 9 o'clock. Don't overthink it. The line went dead. Caroline sat there, phone in hand, something warm and fragile blooming in her chest. Hope. Actual hope. Not the bitter kind she'd been carrying, the kind that expected disappointment. Real hope. The dangerous kind. Mommy. Grace appeared again. Why are you smiling? Because something good happened, baby. What? I got a job interview. Grace's face lit up. With the nice man? With the nice man? I told you he meant it. Grace bounced on her toes. Can I come? I want to see him again. Maybe. We'll see. Caroline caught her daughter's hand. But Grace, we need to be careful, okay? We have to be smart about this. What do you mean? How did you explain to a 5-year-old that kindness from strangers was usually too good to be true, that people who seemed perfect often weren't, that getting your hopes up only meant falling harder when things fell apart? I just mean we need to be realistic, sweetie. Mr. Thornton seems very nice, but we don't really know him. But he helped us. I know. And he was brave when the mean lady was scary. I know. So he's good. Right, Mommy? He's good. Caroline pulled her daughter close, kissed the top of her head. Yeah, baby. I think maybe he is. That night, after Grace was asleep, Caroline sat at her laptop and Googled Thornton Construction. The website was simple, professional. Photos of finished homes, renovations, custom builds. Testimonials from satisfied clients. A small family business, 15 employees, been operating for 8 years. Everything looked legitimate, normal, real. She clicked on the About page. There was a photo of Daniel in jeans and a work shirt standing in front of a half-built house, actually smiling at the camera. The text below said he'd started the company after his wife died, that he specialized in accessible design, that he believed homes should work for the people who lived in them, not the other way around. Accessible design. Caroline read it again. He built houses for people like her. That's what he did. That's who he was. She closed the laptop, wheeled to her bedroom, transferred to bed, lay in the dark staring at the ceiling. Monday was 2 days away. 2 days to prepare, to figure out what to wear, to pretend she knew what she was doing, to try to be the person Daniel seemed to think she was. 2 days to hope that maybe finally something was going to go right. Grace appeared in the doorway, backlit by the hallway nightlight, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Bad dream. No. Grace padded across the room, climbed into bed beside Caroline. I just wanted to make sure you were still happy. I'm still happy. Good. Grace snuggled close. I have a good feeling about Monday, Mommy. I think everything's going to be okay. Caroline wrapped her arm around her daughter, breathed in the smell of her shampoo, the warmth of her small body, the absolute trust in her voice. Children believed in happy endings. Maybe she could try to believe too. Yeah, baby, Caroline whispered into the dark. Maybe everything's going to be okay. And for the first time in 3 years, she almost meant it. Monday morning arrived with rain, the kind that made Caroline's joints ache, and her wheelchair slip on wet pavement. She'd been awake since 5, changing outfits 3 times before settling on black pants and a blue blouse that Grace said made her look like a real business lady. The compliment had made Caroline laugh, but now sitting in her car outside Thornton Construction, with the windshield wipers beating a nervous rhythm, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. We're early, Grace observed from the back seat. I know. Are you scared? A little bit. Don't be. The nice man likes you already? Caroline checked her reflection in the rearview mirror one more time, then took a breath. Okay, let's do this. Getting the wheelchair out in the rain was always harder. By the time Caroline had it unfolded and transferred from the car, her blouse had dark spots on the shoulders, and her hair was starting to frizz. Grace held an umbrella over both of them, struggling against the wind, her little face serious with concentration. The office was a converted house on the edge of town, white siding with blue shutters, and a ramp leading to the front door. A ramp. Caroline felt something tight in her chest loosen just slightly. At least she wouldn't have to figure out how to navigate steps. She pushed through the door, and warmth hit her immediately, along with the smell of coffee and sawdust and something baking. The front room had been turned into a reception area, comfortable chairs, photos of completed projects on the walls, and a desk where a woman in her 60s looked up with a smile that actually reached her eyes. You must be Caroline. I'm Dorothy. Daniel said you'd be coming by. I hope it's okay I brought my daughter. He said, Honey, Daniel brings Lily here all the time. There's a whole toy corner in the back office. Dorothy came around the desk and crouched down to Grace's level. What's your name, sweetheart? Grace. That's a beautiful name. Are you hungry? I just pulled muffins out of the oven. Grace looked at Caroline for permission. Caroline nodded, and Grace followed Dorothy toward the back, leaving Caroline alone in the reception area, dripping rain on the hardwood floor. You made it. She turned. Daniel stood in the doorway to what must be his office, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, looking nothing like the man in the suit from Saturday. Looking real, normal, like someone who actually worked for a living instead of just managing money from behind expensive desks. I made it, Caroline echoed. Sorry we're early. I didn't want to be late. Early is good. Come on back. His office was organized chaos. Blueprints spread across a drafting table, filing cabinets overflowing with folders, a coffee maker that looked like it had been through a war, and yes, a corner with toys scattered across a braided rug where a little girl with dark hair sat building something with blocks. Lily, this is Ms. Caroline and her daughter Grace. Lily looked up, assessed Caroline with solemn eyes, then smiled. Hi, do you want to build with me? That's very nice, but Ms. Caroline is here to talk to Daddy about work stuff. Actually, Caroline said, surprising herself, maybe Grace would like to build with you, if that's okay. The two girls looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passing between them. Then Grace nodded and went to join Lily on the rug. Just like that. Simple. The way children made friends when adults weren't complicating everything. Daniel gestured to a chair across from his desk. Caroline wheeled over, parked, tried to sit up straight and look competent. Daniel poured coffee into 2 mugs without asking, set one in front of her. Cream sugar. Black is fine. He sat, leaned back, studied her with those steady eyes. You look terrified. I'm not. Caroline stopped. Okay, I'm terrified. Why? Because I haven't worked in 3 years. Because you're offering me something that seems too good to be true. Because good things don't happen to me, Mr. Thornton. They just don't. So I keep waiting for the catch. Daniel, he corrected gently. And there's no catch. I need someone to manage the books, handle invoicing, keep track of expenses, all the stuff I'm terrible at. You have experience with that. I did bookkeeping for my husband's business, auto repair shop, small operation, but I managed everything. Accounts payable, receivable, payroll taxes, all of it. For how long? 4 years, until... She stopped. Until the accident. Daniel finished quietly. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. Drunk driver? The words came out flat. Hit us head on. Tom died instantly. I spent 6 months in rehab learning how to do everything over again. Grace was 2. She doesn't remember any of it. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. Caroline took a sip of coffee, burned her tongue, welcomed the pain because it was something to focus on. But sorry doesn't pay bills or fix legs or bring people back. No, Daniel agreed. It doesn't. They sat in silence for a moment. Behind them, the girls giggled over something, the sound pure and uncomplicated. Daniel reached for a folder, pushed it across the desk. This is last month's financials. It's a mess. My old bookkeeper tried to show me how to keep up with it after she retired, but honestly, I don't have the brain for it. I'm good with my hands, good with people, terrible with numbers. Caroline opened the folder, scanned the pages. It was a mess. Receipts stuffed in randomly, invoices out of order, expense reports half completed. But it was a familiar mess. The kind she used to fix every month for Tom back when life made sense. This is definitely fixable, she said slowly. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Daniel leaned forward. Here's what I'm thinking. $25 an hour to start, 30 hours a week, flexible schedule. You work from home, mostly come in once a week for meetings. Health insurance kicks in after 3 months. If it works out, we can talk about increasing hours or pay or both. $25 an hour. Caroline did the math in her head. That was more than she'd made at the repair shop. That was enough to stop choosing between groceries and Grace's asthma medication. That was enough to start saving to maybe fix the car's transmission, to buy Grace shoes that actually fit. That's very generous. It's market rate for a bookkeeper in this area. I checked. But you don't know if I'm any good. So prove it to me. Daniel slid a laptop across the desk. Take a look at this month's stuff. Show me what you do with it. Take your time. I've got calls to make anyway. He stood, left her alone with the laptop and the chaos of receipts and the sound of children playing. Caroline stared at the screen, at the QuickBooks program she hadn't used in 3 years, and felt something click into place. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, muscle memory taking over. Sort by date. Cross-reference with bank statements. Flag duplicates. Create categories. It was like breathing, natural and necessary and right. She lost track of time. Dorothy brought more coffee at some point. Grace and Lily moved from blocks to coloring. The rain kept falling outside. And Caroline worked fixing Daniel's mess, organizing chaos into order, remembering what it felt like to be useful, to be good at something, to be more than just a woman in a wheelchair trying to survive. Wow. She looked up. Daniel stood behind her, looking at the screen over her shoulder. You weren't kidding. You're good at this. It's not that complicated once you set up the system right. It's completely complicated and we both know it. Daniel moved around the desk, sat down again. How long have you been working? Caroline checked the time on the laptop. 2 hours had passed. I'm sorry, I should have asked. Don't apologize. I'm impressed. He paused. So, do you want the job? Did she want it? She wanted it so badly it scared her. Wanted it like drowning people, wanted air like desperate people, wanted second chances like broken things wanted to be fixed. "Yes," she whispered. "Good." Daniel smiled, and it transformed his whole face. "Then it's yours. Can you start this week?" Yes, I can start whenever you need me." Thursday. That gives you a couple days to get things sorted. Arrange childcare if you need it. And like I said, Grace is welcome here anytime the schedule doesn't work out. Mr. Thornton, Daniel, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. You're doing me a favor, trust me. I've been drowning in paperwork for weeks. He extended his hand. Welcome to Thornton Construction, Caroline. She shook his hand, felt the calluses, the strength, the reality of it. This was happening. This was actually happening. Mommy. Grace appeared at her elbow. Lily says they have a swing set in the backyard. Can we see it after the rain stops? The rain's letting up now, Daniel said. Why don't you girls go look? Just stay where we can see you from the window. They ran off, Grace's laughter echoing through the office, and Caroline felt tears burning behind her eyes. When was the last time she'd heard her daughter laugh like that? Free and easy and uncomplicated by worry. She's a good kid, Daniel observed, watching them through the window. She is. She's everything. I know the feeling. He turned back to Caroline. Listen, I know this is all moving fast. If you need time to think about it to make sure it's right. It's right. Caroline's voice was firm. I don't need to think about it. You have no idea what this means. I think I do. Daniel's expression was soft. After my wife died, I couldn't get anyone to hire me. They'd hear single dad, and suddenly there were concerns about my availability, my commitment, whether I could handle the responsibility. Never mind that I'd been working construction for 15 years. The single parent thing scared them. What happened? I started my own company. Figured if nobody would give me a chance, I'd give myself one. He shrugged. Best decision I ever made. And now I get to give other people chances too. People like you. People like me, Caroline repeated. You mean people in wheelchairs, eh? I mean people who've been through hell and came out the other side still trying, still showing up, still fighting. Daniel's voice was quiet but intense. You know how many people would have walked away after what Eleanor did Saturday, would have gone home, given up, decided it wasn't worth it. But you called. You came here. You're still trying. That's the kind of person I want working for me. Caroline's throat was tight. You don't really know me. I know enough, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. What if I mess up? What if I can't do this? Then we'll figure it out. That's what people do. They figure things out together. He pulled a paper from a drawer, slid it across. This is the official offer letter. Take it home, read it, sign it if you want the job. Bring it back Thursday. Caroline took the paper, folded it carefully, put it in her bag. Her hands were shaking. Everything was shaking. Daddy! Lily burst back through the door. It stopped raining. Can we go to the diner for lunch? The diner? Daniel checked his watch. I guess it is lunchtime. Caroline, would you and Grace like to join us? My treat. Oh, we couldn't. Please, Mommy. Grace appeared behind Lily, both girls wearing matching hopeful expressions. Please, can we go? Caroline looked at Daniel, at his open, honest face, at the complete lack of pity in his eyes. Just kindness, just genuine invitation. Okay, she heard herself say. Yes, thank you. The diner was called Rosie's, and it was exactly the kind of place Caroline would have avoided 3 years ago. Too small, too crowded, too many people to stare at the wheelchair. But Daniel navigated them to a booth in the back, like it was nothing. Helped move chairs, so Caroline could pull up to the table, got the girls settled with crayons and coloring placemats before she even had to ask. You're good at this, Caroline observed. Practice. Lily's been in public since she was tiny. You learn to adapt. A waitress appeared 50-ish with kind eyes and a name tag that said Rita. Daniel Thornton, as I live and breathe, Haven't seen you in weeks. Been busy, Rita. How's your grandson? Growing like a weed. Who's this? This is Caroline Bennett, my new bookkeeper, and her daughter Grace. Rita's smile widened. Well, welcome to the circus, honey. You're gonna need patience with this one. He can't add worth a damn. I pay you to eat here, Rita, not insult me. I do both for free. Rita winked at Caroline. What can I get you folks? They ordered grilled cheese for the girls, burgers for the adults, and Caroline watched Daniel interact with Rita with the cook, who waved from the kitchen with the older couple in the next booth who asked about a renovation project. He knew everyone. Everyone knew him. And they all treated Caroline like she belonged there, like the wheelchair was just another piece of furniture, like she was normal. You come here a lot, Caroline said after Rita left. 3-4 times a week. Can't cook worth anything, and Lily needs vegetables sometimes. Daniel grinned. Rita's like a second grandmother to her. Half the town is. That must be nice. It is. It's why I stayed here after Emily died, instead of moving back to the city. Community matters. People showing up for each other matters. Grace tugged Caroline's sleeve. Mommy Lily says her mommy is in heaven with Daddy. Silence dropped over the table. Caroline's breath caught, but Daniel spoke before she could. That's right, sweetheart. They're both in heaven watching over you girls and making sure you're okay. Do you think they're friends now? Grace's voice was serious. In heaven? Do you think they talk about us? Daniel's eyes met Caroline's across the table, something shared passing between them. Understanding. Recognition. The fellowship of people who'd survived the unsurvivable. I think they probably are, Daniel said softly. I think they're very proud of how brave you both are. I'm not always brave, Grace admitted. Sometimes I'm scared. Being scared and being brave aren't opposites, kiddo. Brave means doing things even when you're scared. Daniel looked at Caroline again. Your mom knows all about that. Food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter things. Favorite colors, school stories, whether unicorns or dragons were better. The girls debated this seriously, while Caroline and Daniel ate in comfortable silence. It felt normal, natural, like they'd done this 100 times before, instead of this being only the second time they'd spoken. Rita refilled coffee, leaned close to Caroline. He's a good man, that one. Lost his wife and came out the other side better instead of bitter. That's rare. He's been very kind to us. Kind is what Daniel does. Kind and fair and decent. You're lucky to work for him. I know. After lunch, Daniel walked them to Caroline's car. The sun had come out, turning everything bright and wet and clean. Grace and Lily were already making plans for playdates, exchanging promises like binding contracts. Thursday then, Daniel said. 9 o'clock. We'll get you set up with everything you need. Thursday. Caroline gripped the door handle. Daniel, why are you really doing this? Ooh. He was quiet for a moment, watching the girls draw pictures in the wet parking lot with sticks. When Emily died, I had 3 people show up. 3. Out of everyone we knew, everyone we thought were friends, 3 people brought food and watched Lily and helped me figure out how to keep going. The rest disappeared. Sent cards, sure, said they were praying, but they didn't show up. He looked at her. I learned something then. That showing up matters. That kindness when someone's drowning matters. That giving people chances matters. So I guess I'm doing this because someone showed up for me once, and I'm trying to pay that forward. Caroline's throat was so tight she could barely speak. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Daniel smiled. See you Thursday, Caroline. She drove home with Grace singing in the back seat with the job offer letter in her bag, with something that felt dangerously like happiness blooming in her chest. It was too much, too fast, too good to be real. But maybe, just maybe, it was real anyway. That night, after Grace was asleep, Caroline sat at the kitchen table and read the offer letter 3 times. Everything Daniel had promised was there in black and white, legal and binding. $25 an hour. Flexible schedule. Health insurance. It was more than she'd dared hope for. It was everything she needed. She signed her name at the bottom, her hand steady, and allowed herself to believe that maybe finally something good was happening. That maybe the universe wasn't done with her yet. That maybe there was still room in her broken life for grace. The word echoed in her mind as she got ready for bed. Grace. Her daughter's name. The thing she'd been given when everything else was taken away. And now this job, this chance, this man who'd stepped forward when everyone else stepped back. Maybe grace came in different forms. Maybe it wasn't always dramatic or obvious. Maybe sometimes it looked like a stranger defending you in a church, like a job offer when you'd given up hope, like a little girl finding a friend, like kindness when cruelty would have been easier. Caroline lay in the dark listening to the house settle, feeling something unfamiliar and fragile taking root inside her chest. Tomorrow she'd call the insurance company about Grace's inhaler. She'd go grocery shopping without counting every penny. She'd start believing that maybe they'd be okay after all. But tonight she just let herself feel grateful. Grateful and terrified and hopeful all at once. It was a start. Thursday morning came faster than Caroline expected. She'd spent 2 days organizing her small home office, testing the laptop Daniel had sent over with Dorothy, making sure Grace's schedule was covered. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, a grandmother who'd always been kind, agreed to watch Grace on the days Caroline needed to go into the office. Everything was falling into place with a smoothness that still felt unreal. "You look nice, Mommy," Grace said, watching Caroline get ready. "Thanks, baby." Caroline smoothed down her blouse for the 3rd time. First day. Real first day. She couldn't mess this up. "Are you nervous?" "A little." "Don't be. Mr. Daniel likes you. Lily told me." Caroline paused mascara wand halfway to her lashes. "Lily told you that?" "Yeah, she said her daddy talks about you. Says you're smart and brave." Heat crept up Caroline's neck. "He's just being nice." "Lily says he doesn't say things he doesn't mean. She says he's very truth-telling." "Truthful," Caroline corrected automatically. "That's what I said." By the time Caroline dropped Grace at Mrs. Chen's and made it to the office, she was 15 minutes early again. Daniel's truck was already in the parking lot, along with 2 other vehicles she didn't recognize. Dorothy greeted her with coffee and a smile. "Morning, honey. Daniel's in the back with the crew, but he said to get you settled. Your desk is ready." Caroline followed her through the office to a small room with windows overlooking the backyard. A desk sat there clean organized, with a new ergonomic chair and everything positioned at the perfect height for someone in a wheelchair. A vase of fresh flowers sat in the corner with a note that read, "Welcome to the team," in Dorothy's handwriting. "Daniel had the guys adjust everything yesterday," Dorothy said. "Wanted to make sure it worked for you." Caroline touched the desk, the chair, the computer already set up and waiting. He'd thought of everything, anticipated her needs before she had to ask. That never happened. "He's a good boss," Dorothy continued. "Best I've had in 40 years of working. Treats people right. Pays fair. Actually gives a damn." "How long have you been here?" "Since he started the company 8 years ago. He asked me to come out of retirement because he knew I'd keep him organized." Dorothy's smile was fond. "Lost my husband the year before. Didn't know what to do with myself. Daniel gave me purpose again. That's what he does, sees people who are hurting and gives them a reason to get up in the morning." Before Caroline could respond, voices echoed from the front office. Men's voices, rough and laughing. Then Daniel appeared in the doorway, sawdust on his jeans, coffee in hand. "You made it. Good." He stepped inside. "What do you think is the setup, okay?" "It's perfect. More than perfect. You didn't have to." "Yeah, I did. Can't have my bookkeeper working in an uncomfortable space. Bad for productivity." He said it casually, like it was nothing, like he hadn't spent time and money making sure she felt welcomed. "Ready to meet the guys?" "The guys?" "My crew. They've been asking about you all week. Come on." Caroline followed him to the main room, where 4 men in work clothes stood around the coffee pot. They looked up when she entered, and Caroline braced herself for the stares, the awkwardness, the careful politeness that always came when people first saw the wheelchair. Everyone, this is Caroline Bennett, our new bookkeeper. Caroline, this is my crew, Mike, Jason, Pete, and that ugly one in the corner is my brother Tom. Ugly! The man Tom grinned. You're the ugly one. I'm the good-looking Thornton. He stepped forward, extended his hand to Caroline. Nice to meet you. Daniel says you're going to fix our disaster of an accounting system. I'm going to try. She already did fix it, Daniel interjected. You should have seen what she did with last month's mess in 2 hours. Magic. Not magic, just organization. Same thing in this place. Mike, the oldest of the group, laughed. Welcome aboard. And heads up, Daniel's terrible with numbers, but he'll pretend he understands what you're talking about in meetings. Just nod and do it your way. Hey, I understand numbers. You thought 15% of 20,000 was 2,000, Jason said. That was one time. It was last week, Uz. The men laughed easy and comfortable, and Caroline felt something in her chest loosen. They weren't treating her different, weren't staring at the wheelchair, or speaking slowly, or asking if she needed help. Just treating her like part of the team. All right, break's over, Daniel said. We've got the Morrison job starting at 10. Caroline, you good here? I'm good. Dorothy's got my number if you need anything, and there's lunch in the fridge, help yourself to whatever. The crew filed out, still laughing about something, and suddenly Caroline was alone in her new office with her new desk and her new job. She sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. Then she opened the accounting software and got to work. The hours disappeared. Caroline organized invoices, reconciled bank statements, set up a proper filing system, created reports that actually made sense. It was like solving a puzzle, finding where all the pieces fit, bringing order to chaos. She'd forgotten how much she loved this, how satisfying it was to take a mess and make it clean. Around noon, her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. How's it going? She typed back. Good. Found 3 duplicate payments you can recover. About $2,400. His response was immediate. You're a miracle worker. Carolyn smiled, set the phone down, kept working. At one point, Dorothy brought soup and a sandwich, insisted Caroline take a break. At another point, Lily appeared after school with Daniel's sister Rachel, a woman in her 30s, who hugged Caroline like they were old friends. Daniel told me about you, Rachel said. About what happened at the wedding. Eleanor Whitmore is a piece of work. You know her. Unfortunately, she tried to get Daniel banned from the country club last year because his truck wasn't luxury enough for the parking lot. Rachel rolled her eyes. Some people have money where their soul should be. Lily climbed into Caroline's lap without asking, and Caroline found herself not minding. The little girl smelled like apple juice and crayons. Are you coming to dinner tonight? Lily asked. Dinner. Daddy's making spaghetti. He always makes too much. You and Grace should come. Caroline looked at Rachel helplessly. Rachel shrugged. He probably forgot to mention it. Daniel's great at building things, terrible at communication. But she's right, he makes enough spaghetti to feed an army. You should come. I don't want to impose. It's not imposing if you're invited, Rachel said. And trust me, Daniel doesn't invite people unless he wants them there. 6 o'clock. I'll text you the address. They left before Caroline could protest further. She sat there, Lily's invitation echoing in her head. Dinner, at Daniel's house, with his family. It felt too intimate, too fast, too much like something more than just employer and employee. But Grace would love it. And Caroline was tired of saying no to everything, of keeping the world at arm's length, because she was afraid of getting hurt. She texted Daniel. Lily invited us to dinner. Is that really okay? His response came while she was staring at the screen. More than okay. Please come. Grace and Lily have been planning it all week apparently. All week. Kids work fast. See you at 6. Caroline typed yes before she could overthink it, then immediately started overthinking it anyway. What did you bring to your boss's house for dinner? Wine, dessert. Nothing. Everything she knew about social situations felt outdated from another life. At 5 o'clock, Dorothy poked her head in. Time to go home, honey. First day's done. Already? You've been working for 7 hours. Daniel would kill me if I let you burn out on day one. Caroline saved her work, shut down the computer, realized she'd accomplished more today than she had in 3 years. Realized she felt useful again, needed, like she had value beyond just surviving. She picked up Grace from Mrs. Chen's, drove home to change, then headed to the address Rachel had texted. Daniel's house was a small craftsman-style home with a wide front porch and a ramp leading to the door. Of course there was a ramp. Everything about Daniel's life seemed built around accessibility, around making space for broken things. Grace rang the doorbell before Caroline could lose her nerve. Daniel answered barefoot and smiling, tomato sauce on his shirt. You came. Lily's very persuasive. She gets it from me. He stepped aside. Come in. Fair warning, it's chaos in here. He wasn't wrong. The house was lived in, and comfortable toys scattered across the living room floor, pictures on every wall, a life fully in progress. Lily appeared and grabbed Grace's hand, dragging her toward her room to see something important. Rachel was in the kitchen tossing salad. Caroline? You made it. Wine? I probably shouldn't, I'm driving. 1 glass won't kill you. Besides, you survived your first day working for my brother. You deserve wine. Rachel poured her a glass of red, and Caroline took it, feeling awkward and out of place in her work clothes, while everyone else was comfortable and casual. You can relax, Daniel said quietly, appearing beside her. This isn't a job interview, just dinner. I know. I haven't done this in a while. Done what? Been in someone's home, been invited to things. People stopped inviting me places after the accident. Daniel's expression darkened. That's their loss. Or their common sense. I'm not exactly easy to accommodate. You're not hard either. You're just different. Different isn't bad. He gestured toward the dining room. Come on, let's eat before the girls declare a food strike. Dinner was loud and messy and wonderful. The girls talked over each other. Rachel told stories about Daniel as a kid that made him groan, and Caroline found herself laughing more than she had in years. Real laughter, the kind that came from your stomach and made your face hurt. So, Caroline, Rachel said, refilling wine glasses. Daniel says you're a miracle worker with the books. I just organized what was already there. She found money we didn't know we had, Daniel corrected. Found duplicate payments, caught errors, made everything make sense. In 1 day. Stop, Caroline protested. You're embarrassing me. I'm complimenting you. There's a difference. He doesn't compliment people unless he means it, Rachel added. Daniel's pathologically honest. Can't lie to save his life. That's not true. You told Mrs. Henderson her new kitchen cabinets were ugly. They were ugly. She asked my opinion. You could have said they were interesting or unique or... Lying wouldn't have helped her. The truth did. She redid them, and now they're beautiful. Rachel looked at Caroline. See, pathologically honest. After dinner, Caroline helped clear dishes despite Daniel's protests. The girls disappeared to Lily's room again, and Rachel excused herself to make a phone call, leaving Caroline and Daniel alone in the kitchen. Thank you for this, Caroline said quietly. For all of it. The job, the dinner, everything. You don't have to keep thanking me. Yes, I do. Because nobody else would have done what you did. Nobody else saw me. Daniel set down the plate he was washing, turned to face her. That's not true. It is. You know it is. People see the wheelchair and they stop seeing me, but you saw me anyway. Because there's a lot to see. His voice was soft, serious. You're smart and strong, and you're raising an amazing kid by yourself. You show up even when it's hard. You keep fighting even when the world keeps knocking you down. Why wouldn't I see that? Caroline's throat was tight. Most people wouldn't. Then most people are idiots. She laughed, surprised. You can't just call people idiots. Why not? It's accurate. He smiled. Look, I know what it's like to be invisible. After Emily died, people treated me like I was broken. Damaged goods. They couldn't see past the grief to the person still standing there. It's lonely as hell." "Yeah," Caroline whispered. "It is. So I guess I'm just trying to make sure you don't feel that way anymore. Here, at least. You're not invisible. You're not broken. You're just Caroline who happens to use a wheelchair and happens to be really good at accounting." Something shifted in the air between them. Caroline felt it new. Daniel felt it too, from the way his expression changed, softened, became something more than just kindness. "Daddy?" Lily's voice broke the moment. "Can Grace sleep over?" "Not on a school night, kiddo. But we're having so much fun." "Which means you'll have fun next time, too." Daniel looked at Caroline. "If there's a next time." "Yeah," Caroline said. "There can be a next time." Driving home later, Grace chattering in the back seat about everything she and Lily had planned, Caroline felt something unfamiliar settling in her chest. Contentment, maybe. Or hope. Or something that felt dangerously close to happiness. Her phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Daniel. "Thanks for coming tonight. You made it better." She typed back, "Thank you for inviting us." "Anytime. Seriously. My door's always open." Caroline stared at those words, "My door's always open," and felt tears prickling behind her eyes. When had someone last said that to her, and meant it? When had someone last made space for her in their life without treating it like charity? "Mommy, are you crying?" Grace asked from the back seat. "Happy tears, baby, just happy tears." Because of Mr. Daniel. Because of a lot of things. He's nice, really, really nice. "Yeah," Caroline agreed softly. "He really is." That night, after Grace was asleep, Caroline sat at her kitchen table and looked at the day. Her first day of work in 3 years. Her first dinner invitation in longer than that. Her first real conversation with someone who didn't treat her like she was fragile or broken or less than. She thought about Eleanor Whitmore, about Maggie's silence, about all the people who'd looked at her wheelchair and decided she wasn't worth their time. And then she thought about Daniel kneeling on cathedral marble to help her pick up her scattered belongings. Daniel offering her a job without hesitation. Daniel looking at her like she mattered. Maybe the world wasn't as cruel as she'd thought. Maybe there were still good people in it. Maybe Grace came in unexpected forms, through unexpected doors, from unexpected strangers who became something more. Caroline picked up her phone, pulled up Daniel's contact, stared at it for a long moment. Then she typed, "Thank you for seeing me." His response was immediate, "Thank you for letting me." She fell asleep that night with her phone on the pillow beside her, with hope blooming fragile and new in her chest, with the first real belief in 3 years that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay after all. 3 months passed in a blur of work and dinners and slow, careful building of something Caroline was afraid to name. She'd settled into the rhythm of Thornton construction, her desk feeling more like home than her apartment sometimes. The health insurance had kicked in right on schedule, and Grace's inhaler no longer meant choosing between medication and groceries. Caroline had started saving money, actual money, in an account that grew instead of shrinking. But it was the other things that changed her life in ways she hadn't expected. The Friday pizza nights that became tradition. Grace and Lily inseparable, now Rachel treating Caroline like the sister she'd never had. The way Daniel texted her random things during the day, funny signs he saw on job sites, questions about invoices that he definitely knew the answers to, pictures of Lily doing something cute. The way he looked at her across the dinner table when he thought she wasn't watching. Caroline tried not to read into it. He was her boss. He was kind to everyone. This was just who he was, decent and good, and not someone who could possibly see her as anything more than the woman in the wheelchair he'd helped out of pity. Except it didn't feel like pity. And the way he looked at her didn't feel like kindness. "You're overthinking again," Rachel said one Friday night, watching Caroline watch Daniel help the girls build a blanket fort in the living room. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You know exactly what I'm talking about. You get this look on your face like you're trying to solve a complicated math problem. But it's not complicated, Caroline. He likes you. He's my boss. He's a man who can't stop smiling when you're around. There's a difference." Caroline looked down at her wine glass. Even if that were true, which I'm not saying it is, I'm not exactly in a position to do anything about it. Why not? Because look at me, Rachel. Really look at me. I'm a single mother in a wheelchair with more baggage than an airport carousel. What could I possibly offer someone like Daniel? Rachel's expression shifted to something fierce. Are you serious right now? You're smart, you're funny, you're an amazing mother. You saved Daniel's business from accounting chaos, and you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. That's what you offer. That's more than most people have to give. But nothing. The wheelchair doesn't make you less. It just makes you different. And different is good. Different is real. Different is someone who understands what loss feels like, what rebuilding feels like, what it means to keep going when everything's broken. You think Daniel wants someone who hasn't been through hell. He's been there. He needs someone who gets it. Before Caroline could respond, Daniel appeared with Lily on his shoulders and Grace holding his hand. "Fort's complete," he announced. "The girls have declared it off-limits to adults for the next hour, so we're banished to the kitchen." Rachel stood, grabbed her coat. "Actually, I just remembered I have somewhere to be." "You do?" Daniel frowned. "You literally just got here." "Yep. Very important thing. Can't be late." She kissed his cheek, squeezed Caroline's shoulder, and was gone before either of them could protest. Daniel looked at Caroline. That was subtle. About as subtle as a brick. She means well. He sat down where Rachel had been close enough that Caroline could smell his cologne, something woodsy and clean. "So, now that we've been abandoned, want to actually talk about the thing we keep not talking about?" Caroline's heart stopped. "What thing? Come on, Caroline. You're smarter than that." His voice was gentle. "This thing between us. Whatever it is. We keep dancing around it pretending it's not happening, but it is happening. Has been since the church. Daniel, let me finish. Please." He took a breath. "I like you. More than I should probably like my employee. More than I've liked anyone since Emily died. You're the first person I think about when I wake up, and the last person I think about before I sleep. I look for excuses to text you. I make extra food for dinner because I'm hoping you'll come over. I've rearranged my whole life around the possibility of seeing you, and I don't even care because those are the best parts of my day." Caroline couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was hearing. "But," Daniel continued, "I also know I'm your boss. I know there's a power dynamic. I know you might feel like you can't say no even if you want to. So I need you to tell me honestly, is this just me? Am I reading things that aren't there? Because if I am, we stop this right now. We go back to being just boss and employee, and I never mention it again." "It's not just you," Caroline whispered. Daniel's eyes searched her face. Yeah, I didn't think you could possibly." She gestured at herself at the wheelchair, at all the broken parts she carried. "Why would you want this? Want me?" "Why wouldn't I?" Daniel moved closer, his voice intense. "You think the wheelchair matters? It doesn't. Not to me. Not to what I feel. You could walk, you could fly, you could be a damn astronaut, and I'd still feel exactly the same way. Because it's not about your legs, Caroline. It's about your heart, your strength, the way you love Grace, the way you showed up to that wedding even though it was hard, the way you keep fighting when most people would have given up. That's what I see. That's what I want." Tears spilled down Caroline's face. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of this being too good to be true. Of waking up and finding out it was all a dream. Of losing something else I care about. Of not being enough." Daniel reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "You're more than enough. You're everything. And I'm scared too, if that helps. Scared of screwing this up. Scared of losing someone else I love. Scared that you'll realize you can do better than a contractor with sawdust in his hair who burns dinner half the time. You love me." The words came out broken. "Yeah." Daniel's smile was soft, vulnerable, completely honest. I think I started falling in love with you the moment I saw you on that cathedral floor refusing to fall apart in front of your daughter, and I've been falling ever since." Caroline couldn't speak, could only stare at this man who'd stepped into her life like Grace itself, who'd seen all her broken pieces and decided they were beautiful anyway. "You don't have to say it back," Daniel said quickly. "I'm not expecting. I love you too." The words tumbled out. I tried not to. Tried to convince myself it was just gratitude or loneliness or some kind of trauma response. But it's not. It's real. You're real. This is real. Daniel's smile transformed his entire face. "Can I kiss you?" "You better." He leaned in slowly, carefully, like she was something precious that might break. His lips met hers, gentle and sure, and Caroline felt something inside her chest crack open, all the walls she'd built, crumbling in the space of a heartbeat. The kiss was soft and sweet, and tasted like hope, like second chances, like everything she'd thought she'd lost forever. When they pulled apart, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that for 3 months." "Only 3 months. Okay, since the church. But I was trying to be professional." "How's that working out?" "Terribly. I'm a disaster around you." He kissed her again, longer this time, deeper, until Caroline forgot how to think about anything except the feeling of his hands in her hair, his breath mixing with hers, the absolute rightness of this moment. Ew. They broke apart. Grace and Lily stood at the kitchen entrance, identical expressions of delighted disgust on their faces. "You guys are kissing," Grace announced. "That's what grown-ups who like each other do," Daniel said, not even slightly embarrassed. "Does this mean you're boyfriend and girlfriend now?" Lily asked. Daniel looked at Caroline, eyebrow raised in question. Caroline's heart was racing, her mind spinning, but her answer came clear and certain. "Yeah," she said. "I think it does." The girls erupted in cheers, already planning their joint family future with the absolute certainty of children who believed in happy endings. Daniel's hand found Caroline's under the table, squeezed gently, and Caroline squeezed back. The next weeks were a revelation. Dating Daniel wasn't like anything Caroline had experienced before. He wasn't Tom, safe and familiar, and chosen because he was there. Daniel was deliberate, intentional. He planned dates around accessibility, researched restaurants called ahead to make sure there were no steps. He talked to Grace about feelings and change, and making sure she was okay with mommy having a boyfriend. He introduced Caroline to his friends not as his employee, but as his girlfriend, with pride in his voice that made her chest tight. He also drove her absolutely crazy in the best way. Left notes in her desk drawer. Sent flowers to the office with cards that said things like, "For the woman who balanced my books and my life." Kissed her in the parking lot when he thought no one was watching. Made her laugh until her stomach hurt. 2 months into their relationship, Daniel took her to the cemetery where Emily was buried. "I want you to meet her," he said simply. They stood at the headstone, Emily Thornton, beloved wife and mother, and Daniel talked to his dead wife like she was sitting right there. Told her about Caroline, about how happy he was, about how he thought she'd like her. Caroline cried, and Daniel held her hand, and somehow it felt right. Not weird or morbid, just honest. An acknowledgement that loving someone new didn't erase loving someone lost. "She would have liked you," Daniel said on the drive home. Emily had a thing for underdogs, people who fought for what they had. "I'm an underdog." "You're a warrior. There's a difference." 3 months after their first kiss, Daniel asked Caroline and Grace to move in. The conversation happened over breakfast, casual and terrifying. "I know it's fast," he said, "and we can wait if you need to. But I wake up every morning wishing you were here. And Lily asks daily when Grace is coming to live with us. And your apartment has stairs you have to navigate with that terrible ramp. My house is already accessible. It makes sense. We make sense." Caroline looked at Grace, who was holding her breath, eyes wide and hopeful. Looked at Lily, bouncing in her seat with excitement. Looked at Daniel, patient and certain, and offering her everything she'd thought she'd never have again. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Okay, yes. We'll move in." The girls screamed. Daniel's smile could have lit the entire city, and Caroline felt something settle deep in her bones, a sense of rightness she'd been missing since the accident took everything away. Moving day was chaos and laughter, and Daniel's crew showing up unasked to help carry boxes. Rachel directed traffic. Dorothy brought food. Mike and the guys teased Daniel mercilessly about being domesticated. Grace and Lily ran through the house claiming rooms and making plans. That night, after the girls were asleep in Lily's room, they'd refused to separate. Caroline and Daniel sat on the back porch, watching fireflies in the yard. "Happy?" Daniel asked. "Terrified," Caroline admitted. "But happy. Is that normal?" "Completely normal. I'm terrified too. Terrified I'll mess this up somehow. Terrified you'll wake up one day and realize you settled." Caroline turned to look at him. "Settled, Daniel. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. Maybe ever. You make me feel seen. You make me feel whole. You make Grace laugh in ways I couldn't manage on my own. How could any of that be settling? I don't know. But my brain likes to create worst-case scenarios at 2 in the morning. Mine too." She leaned against him. "So, we'll be terrified together. And we'll figure it out. Together. Together." Daniel repeated, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I like the sound of that." 6 months later, on a Saturday afternoon, when the girls were at Rachel's for a sleepover, Daniel took Caroline to the cathedral. St. Matthew's, where everything had started. "Why are we here?" Caroline asked, her chest tight with memory. "Because I need to ask you something, and this felt like the right place." He wheeled her to the third pew, the one he'd been sitting in that day, and knelt down beside her chair. Caroline's heart stopped. "That day," Daniel said quietly, "I watched Eleanor Whitmore try to destroy you. Watched her make you feel small and worthless and invisible. And I watched you hold your head high anyway. Watched you love your daughter through the pain. Watched you be stronger than anyone had a right to expect. And I thought, that's the kind of person I want in my life. That's the kind of strength I want Lily to see. That's the kind of love I want to build a life around." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Caroline's hands flew to her mouth. "I'm not good with words," Daniel continued. "I'm better with my hands with building things. But I want to build a life with you, Caroline. Want to build a family with you. Want to build something strong enough to weather anything, because we've both already weathered the worst, and we're still standing. So will you marry me? Will you let me love you and Grace for the rest of my life? Will you let me prove every single day that you're not too much or too broken or too anything except exactly perfect? Yes." The word came out choked with tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes." Daniel slipped the ring on her finger, simple, beautiful, exactly right, and kissed her there in the pew where he'd first decided to stand up for her. Where Grace had walked in wearing work boots and flannel. Where everything had changed. They were married 2 months later in Daniel's backyard, surrounded by family and friends, and people who actually showed up when it mattered. Grace and Lily were flower girls walking down the aisle together, inseparable as they'd been since that first day. Rachel cried through the entire ceremony. Dorothy brought enough food to feed the neighborhood. And Caroline, in a dress she'd sewn herself, this time with time and care and joy, instead of desperate hope, wheeled down the aisle toward Daniel and thought about how wrong she'd been about everything. How Grace didn't come through the front door in fancy packages. How it came through side doors and back doors in work boots and contractors' hands in men who knelt on marble floors and saw value where others saw burden. The officiant asked if anyone objected. Silence. No Eleanor Whitmore. No Maggie. No one who'd decided Caroline wasn't worth their time. Just people who'd shown up. People who mattered. "I do," Caroline said when her turn came, her voice strong and clear and certain. "I do." Daniel echoed, his eyes never leaving hers. And when they kissed, Grace and Lily cheered louder than anyone, already calling themselves sisters, already building the family they'd both needed all along. That night, after the guests had left, and the girls were asleep in Lily's room. Caroline and Daniel sat on their back porch, their porch now, their house, their life, and watched the stars. "Any regrets?" Daniel asked. "Not a single one." Caroline leaned into him. "You. Only that I didn't defend you harder that day. Should have said more, done more. You did exactly enough. You saw me when no one else did. You stood up when everyone else stayed sitting. You changed everything." Daniel kissed her softly. "We changed everything. Together." And Caroline realized that was exactly right. This wasn't a story about being saved. It was a story about two broken people finding each other and deciding that broken pieces could build something beautiful. That wheelchairs and grief and loss and pain didn't disqualify you from love. They just meant you understood how rare and precious it was when you found it. 3 years ago, Eleanor Whitmore had tried to make Caroline invisible, had tried to tell her she didn't belong, didn't matter, wasn't enough. And maybe in Eleanor's world, she wasn't. But in this world, the one Caroline had built with Daniel and Grace and Lily and everyone who'd actually shown up, she was everything. She was seen. She was loved. She was home. And that Caroline thought as she watched fireflies dance across their yard, as she felt her husband's arm around her shoulders and heard her daughter's breathing through the open window, was more than enough. It was everything she'd never dared to hope for, and exactly what she deserved. Grace came in different forms she'd learned. Sometimes it looked like catastrophe. Sometimes like loss. Sometimes like humiliation in a church foyer. But always it led somewhere better than where you'd been. You just had to be brave enough to follow it through the side door and see where it took you. Caroline had followed, and it had brought her here to love, to family, to a life she'd never imagined but couldn't imagine living without. The broken girl in the wheelchair hadn't been saved by a man in a church. She'd been seen by him, and that had made all the difference.